My fiancé and I made a mutual decision to embrace an open relationship a year ago. We established clear boundaries. While physical interactions with others were allowed, emotional connections beyond our partnership were off limits. However, my suspicions grew when I began to suspect he was developing an emotional bond with a woman he had been physically involved with. As our wedding date approached, I found myself wanting to close the open relationship due to its impact on our bond. I had engaged in purely physical relationships with 4 men, adhering to our agreement. On the other hand, my fiancé had intimate encounters with several women, but it seemed there was nothing more to it. That was until I discovered he had been seeing one particular woman for at least 3 months. My investigation revealed that he was taking her out for dinners and lunches, messaging her daily, and even planning work trips together. This emotional involvement crossed the boundaries we had set, leaving me feeling furious and betrayed. I resolved that I couldn't proceed with our relationship under these circumstances. I wanted him to end his emotional involvement with her. Otherwise, I couldn't go through with marrying him. We had promised to prioritize each other, and his actions had clearly violated that agreement. I planned to confront him that evening, seeking an explanation for his breach of trust and honesty. I didn't form emotional connections with other men and remained faithful to our agreement. You see, he must have been deeply hurt by my initial suggestion of having friends with benefits. The problems in my relationship with my fiancé came to a head on a Friday, shortly after I discovered his emotional involvement with a woman he had initially only had a physical relationship with. Our open relationship began last year, but we had been exclusive before that. On that fateful Friday, he went to her place after work, intending to return on Saturday. However, he informed me on Saturday that he would be staying until Sunday. He explained that she was unwell and had a migraine coming on, so he wanted to make sure she was okay before leaving. I called him out on his excuses, as it seemed unnecessary for him to stay with her for a migraine. He insisted he was being honest and promised to return on Sunday afternoon, which he did. Afterward, I confronted him about my knowledge of his relationship with this woman, which we both agreed was off limits in our open relationship. We had agreed to physical partners only, without emotional connections to others. He seemed taken aback by how much I knew about his interactions and outings with her. I confessed that I had looked at his email and WhatsApp messages, which enraged him. He refused to engage in further conversation, but I pressed him, knowing he was hiding something. Eventually, he approached me and dropped the bombshell. He had been contemplating our relationship and had concluded that he no longer wanted to marry me. When I inquired if he was ending our engagement, he went further, stating he was done with the relationship altogether. Amid heated arguments about his infidelity, he admitted that his decision was directly linked to his deep feelings for this woman. He confessed to being in love with her and acknowledged that he had cut ties with all his other partners because he was emotionally invested in her. He described feeling loved and cherished when with her, appreciating that she had chosen to be exclusively with him. He declared his intention to commit to her. I expressed my desire to close our relationship and be only with him, realizing that the open arrangement was not working for us. However, he firmly refused, asserting that he couldn't end his relationship with her and that he no longer cared to make things work with me, as everything had changed irreparably. I reminded him that he had agreed to open our relationship and had been involved with several women. Yet, he was now holding me responsible for our mutual decision. He denied blaming anyone, expressing that he initially believed the open relationship would work out fine. However, over time, he found the experiences empty and felt pathetic engaging in casual encounters. He described the encounters as meaningless and admitted feeling terrible about it all. He stated his desire for complete commitment, expressing his preference for a more meaningful connection. He didn't offer an apology for emotionally cheating behind my back. When I pointed out that he was ending years of commitment and an engagement for a mere 3-month fling, he coldly insisted it wasn't just a fling. I couldn't believe his detached and indifferent demeanor. Although he didn't explicitly say it, he was seriously contemplating moving in with her after only 3 months. His words left me devastated and hollow. I am torn between waiting for him to realize he might be rushing into this new relationship and abruptly leaving our life and home together, or letting him go and seeing if he ever comes back to me. I feel too shocked and confused to react, spending the entire night awake, trying to comprehend what happens now. We were supposed to get married later this year, and the thought of canceling our plans and telling everyone it's off is unbearable. My mind is overwhelmed, and I am struggling to cope. As for whether I should inform the other woman about his engagement, I'm unsure if she is aware of it. Reading the comments, I am left feeling like I am the one who played a game and ended up with a heart-wrenching prize. The situation has turned, and he has closed the door that we once opened, leaving me standing on the other side in disbelief. How does it make you feel to picture him taking this woman out for a romantic candlelit meal, filled with sweet, tender moments? Does it churn your stomach and shatter your heart? The truth is, when you hinted that he wasn't enough for you by suggesting sleeping with other guys, you made him feel inadequate. From a purely rational perspective, he thought he was better off finding someone else than staying with you. After all, you implied there was someone specific you wanted to be with, even if you didn't explicitly say it. I know it might not be the most ethical path, but in his eyes, it seemed like the right thing to do, especially since you had experience with open relationships in the past. Furthermore, despite your claim of no emotional attachments outside your relationship, you were never emotionally available for him. So he found someone else, someone who, in his own words, made him the sole focus of her affection. You can't salvage this, nor should you try. Your selfishness and neglect pushed him away, and while he's not blameless, he's far less at fault than you. Let him go and find happiness. Don't bother contacting the other woman because she's evidently closer to him than you are now. I agree with all of this. Despite OP's attempts to justify herself, she fails to grasp the gravity of her actions. The relationship was opened up as a last resort when things were falling apart. His self-worth deteriorated, and this was never communicated properly. It's clear he was deeply hurt. Frankly, it doesn't seem like OP has the choice to close the relationship anymore, considering how oblivious she appears to be. I can't help but wonder if this is some April Fool's Day prank, because the situation seems almost too absurd to be real. If it isn't a joke, it's downright creepy to think someone like OP exists out there. I'm sorry for your situation, but belittling others won't change the reality. Now for the next story. I, a 20-year-old female, pushed my 19-year-old male boyfriend into an open relationship, and now I fear he's going to leave me. The title pretty much sums it up. We've been dating for almost 3 years, starting back in high school. Our intimate life used to be amazing, but recently it lost its spark. My best friend at the time suggested that the only way to fix the relationship was by opening it up. So I sat down with my boyfriend and explained what an open relationship entailed. I was genuinely excited about this new experience, but my boyfriend was initially hesitant. It took a week of convincing and explaining the pros and cons for him to agree. It was clear that he had reservations, as he believed it would permanently alter our relationship. Despite his reluctance, we opened up our relationship, and a few months passed. During this time, I engaged in a physical relationship with one of my coworkers, devoid of any emotional attachments. It was enjoyable, but I began to miss being intimate with my boyfriend and yearned to return to monogamy. However, my world was turned upside down when I discovered that my boyfriend was sleeping with far more people than I was. What hurt even more was that many of these individuals were from our high school, and the ultimate betrayal was that he had fallen in love with the concept of an open relationship, while I wanted to revert to monogamy. I felt betrayed and conflicted about how things had unfolded. As for the top advice, well, it seemed like my plan had backfired. I recognized that but desperately wanted to return to monogamy, even though my boyfriend was enjoying the open relationship concept. The phrase, play stupid games, win stupid prizes resonated with my situation. Others pointed out that I wasn't betrayed. I had pushed for this arrangement. Now that it seemed to be working for my boyfriend, I couldn't suddenly ask to close it. I was told I might have to live with the consequences of my actions or risk the relationship collapsing. My friend's advice had been misguided, and there were better ways to address relationship issues than taking such a drastic step. Ultimately, I was advised that I couldn't put the genie back in the bottle. My boyfriend was content with the current arrangement, and my choices had led us down this path. Ending the relationship might be the only option if we couldn't find a compromise. I was cautioned against thinking he would just leave me, as he seemed satisfied with the open relationship. Now, everything seems to be going well on the surface, despite how I'm truly feeling. If I were to tell him that I no longer wanted an open relationship, he probably wouldn't agree to end it. He enjoys the freedom of the open relationship, relishing both physical intimacy with others and the comfort of having me at home. It's evident that I've made a mistake. As for the last story, I'm a 29-year-old woman in a 2-year relationship with my 31-year-old boyfriend. I wasn't content with our monogamous relationship, so I initiated the conversation about an open relationship after a year and a half. My motivation wasn't dissatisfaction with him. Rather, I missed the excitement of flirting in new relationships, which I knew I couldn't recreate with him. We set some ground rules. Each of us could have one extra partner at a time, strictly friends with benefits, not one-night stands. These partners couldn't be people already in our lives, and we couldn't see them more than once a week without the other's permission. Additionally, bringing them home required mutual agreement. Initially, the open relationship seemed like a good solution. I had the opportunity to explore new connections without diving into a string of physical relationships. However, my boyfriend started seeing Christine. He followed all our rules and was transparent about his interactions with her. Yet he didn't stop seeing her. Despite my attempts to move on from people to avoid attachment, he continued seeing Christine for 4 months. Recently, he suggested a threesome with her, and I reluctantly agreed to meet her for coffee without him present. The encounter left me feeling angry and uncomfortable. I cut the date short and informed my boyfriend that I was not interested in pursuing a threesome with her. What frustrated me most was his refusal to consider a threesome involving my friend with benefits, despite my openness to one with Christine. He outright rejected the idea and wouldn't even meet my friend, despite me meeting all of his partners. The situation left me feeling frustrated and confused about our relationship dynamics. I've reached a point where the open relationship doesn't matter to me anymore. Is there any way to close things up again and move past this? Some general advice. Treat others how you want to be treated. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And for the vast majority of people, open relationships are a terrible idea. In retrospect, asking for an open relationship seems selfish now because it was all about me scratching my own itch, not about exploring something meaningful with my partner. When my boyfriend followed the rules I set, I selfishly decided to close the relationship due to my own jealousy. This situation makes me question my emotional capacity to handle either a healthy open relationship or a healthy closed one. It feels like this post perfectly embodies the typical progression of open relationships. For many men, the hardest part of opening a relationship is their partner having physical intimacy with other men. For women, it's often dealing with the emotional connections their partner forms with other women. At the beginning of an open relationship, when both partners start exploring with others, it's usually more challenging for the man. He has to navigate his emotions and do a lot of emotional work, whereas the woman often finds it relatively easy and is enthusiastic about the non-monogamous lifestyle during this time. However, complications often arise when the man starts bonding deeply with another partner, forcing the woman to face difficult emotions. At this point, instead of dealing with her feelings, she might demand to close the relationship and use various tactics, like vetoes and new rules, to keep the relationship effectively one-sided. It's important to understand that suggesting an open relationship and then getting upset when your partner engages in one is precisely why this idea is problematic in the first place. Not everyone desires casual encounters with strangers, especially if they're in a relationship. As for my specific feelings when meeting the other woman, it wasn't just about her looks. She wasn't the type of girl I expected my boyfriend to be interested in. I'm taller and more athletically built, into hiking and climbing, while she's petite with a push-up bra, fitting the typical cute girl image. It's not about jealousy. It's about the surprise that the girl he chose as his friend with benefits doesn't match my expectations. And that concludes this discussion. If you have any thoughts to share, please leave a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. See you in the next one. Good day, everyone.